Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flick-N-Reel, your friendly neighborhood fancast. We are your source for news, reviews, and daily discourse. I am your host, Jesse Swift, and today I am not accompanied by Scott Fox. Scott had something come up today, so we will, of course, be hoping to see him next week. So today we will be talking about the first two episodes of WandaVision that dropped on Disney Plus this last Friday, or Thursday night at midnight if you stayed up for it, which I did. All right, before we get weird and wacky with Wanda, listeners or viewers, are you on the go and rarely sitting down long enough to watch a podcast? Don't worry, we have you covered. You can also find us on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. All of our links can be found in the description below. And with that out of the way, Marvel's back, baby! It's been 564 days since we last visited the Marvel Cinematic Universe. WandaVision has arrived with its first two episodes, introducing us to the MCU's first foray into the exclusive streaming content. For those of you who don't know what the show is about, I have a synopsis here in front of me. Marvel Studios' WandaVision blends the style of classic sitcoms with Marvel Cinematic Universe, in which Wanda Maximoff, played of course by Elizabeth Olsen, and Vision, Paul Bettany, two superpowered beings living their ideal suburban lives, begin to suspect that everything is not as it seems. Now, if you have watched the trailers, you can tell that that is a pretty accurate description of what we see in the episodes here. And I want to take a few seconds to give you guys my thoughts on the first two episodes without diving into spoilers, just in case you haven't watched it yet and you're kind of on the fence on whether or not this might be a show for you. Now, there have been a few different reactions online. I wouldn't say it's polarizing, because I would say the vast majority of people are enjoying the show, but there are some people that say that they think the show is boring or it's not hooking them. I would encourage you to stay with it. I think there's a lot of intrigue here, and it's a little bit of a slow build because they want you to be a little bit confused. Now, I was wondering if we were going to get some introductory shots that really set up the show and show how we got into the situation. I'll let you know right now. Without any details, they drop you right into the middle of it. So I think this is a mystery that will be unfolding over time. And let's talk about some of the sitcom elements with the show. Now, between the music, the clothing, the aesthetics, and just the overall tone, I think they've absolutely nailed the 50s black and white sitcoms like I Love Lucy and Bewitched and things like that. Here's Goose being a guest star. Yay. And I think Paul Bettany really gets a chance to shine here, and we'll get into more details with the characters here coming up. My overall thoughts were that I found it very enjoyable. I had a grin on my face. Even if I wasn't laughing, I was smiling all the way through both these episodes. I did have several belly laughs from all the characters. There's side characters that get great chances to shine. And I just really appreciate the attention to detail. There are Easter eggs that are some that are pretty obvious if you're a Marvel fan, and some that you really have to be looking for, whether it's a little speck of color here in the black and white, or a name drop or something like that. So they really test you there, and I have to give all the credit in the world to the writing team on the show, and I can't wait to see what they do moving forward. I believe it's either 8 or 9 episodes this season, so we either have 6 or 7 episodes left. So it'll be really exciting to see what they do with that. And I just want to really encourage you guys, don't form your opinion after the first episode, because I think the episodes are only about 20-30 minutes long, and the first one really is just kind of a setup to the premise of the show. There's a little bit of intrigue there, but not a lot. It's mostly just here is our Wanda and Vision sitcom. The second show starts getting into okay, what's actually going on here? So I think maybe you have a decent taste of what the show is offering after the second episode. So please just, it takes 1 hour to watch both episodes. So just give it a watch and let me know what you guys think about it. I highly recommend it. That being said, I would like to get right into spoilers. And the first thing that we are going to talk about is the characters. Now, There's been so much speculation going into this show, and I think the speculation is going to continue full force moving forward, because all the first 2 episodes really do is raise more questions. But I think there's things in there that help kind of support or substantiate some of the speculation that has been happening in the many months, feels like, I guess, maybe over a year since this show was announced. So I want to talk about Wanda first, because this is Wanda's show. Vision is definitely a main character, obviously, and they share a lot of screen time together. But I think the world and everything that's happening around is very centric to Wanda. Elizabeth Olsen, the way that she is able to just dive right into embodying the 50s era sitcoms is very impressive, and she just does a really endearing job, and it's hard not to smile when she's on screen, because of course they have her in these beautiful outfits and her hair looks incredible, but she's just also very warm. And I think Scarlet Witch a lot of times is a dour character because she's gone through so much. And I really think that Wanda is within her right to not be the most chipper character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because obviously she lost her parents to Stark Technology. She was experimented on. Her brother died, and then she had to watch like the one thing that she had left die. And one of those times, one of the 2 times that he died was at her own hand. So you got to admit, even the best of us would be pretty messed up in the head. And it's interesting to question what kind of weapon of mass destruction that Wanda Maximoff is, what someone like her would experience after going through a lot of those tragedies. And I think that you can, even in some of the brighter moments, see the darkness in her eyes. And sometimes it looks like she almost breaks the fourth wall and snaps out of this Pleasantville kind of stereotypical perfect paradise dream that she's having. And in those moments, we see her kind of go stone face. And I just think Elizabeth Olsen plays the full spectrum of emotion very well in this, and does an incredible job of not just doing a straight up satire of these sitcoms, but really honoring the feeling of them, the innocence. And it was just a different time. And to be able to go back and visit that, even for 20-30 minutes, is just really a gift, especially in the things that we've been going through last year and even this year already. So all the credit in the world to Elizabeth Olsen, and I'm sure I'll bring her up more as we go on talking about the show. But for now, it's so great to see more Scarlet Witch, and I can't wait for more. With that, we will move on to Vision. Vision is a huge question mark, because we don't really know what his inclusion in the show means, because last time we saw Vision, he was a lifeless corpse with a hole in his skull in Infinity War. And I know that sounds grim, but man, it wasn't easy to watch. And anybody that's a fan of the comics knows that Wanda has some reality warping abilities and kind of just a vague power set and can do a little bit of anything. So what we're left to wonder is did she find a way to bring Vision back to life or fix the Mind Stone? We don't know. Or is all of this just a manufactured reality in her head, and in which Vision is alive? And maybe when reality breaks through and she gets woken up, is she going to lose Vision? Is she going to lose any happiness that she's obtained through the WandaVision show that she's on, or this reality? Pardon me while I take a drink. I haven't been on my own for a podcast for probably about almost 2 years, so I'm not used to talking straight nonstop. And maybe you guys would prefer that I didn't, but we're going to keep trying to go through this. So Paul Bettany, to me, as incredible as Elizabeth Olsen does, Paul Bettany is actually the stand-up performance for me, because as Jarvis and as Vision, he was just perfectly cast to do the thought out, dry deliveries that he does in the Marvel films. However, anyone that has seen Knight's Tale or some of Paul Bettany's other performances knows that he can be a tremendous comedic actor, and I'm grateful that the showrunners here have allowed him to do so. Um, whether it's just kind of his awkward charm in the first episode, but where it really comes through is in the second episode when Vision accidentally consumes some gum and it gets inside his gears, which I don't know if that's atomically correct for an android or for him specifically, a synthezoid. But anyways, it gets into his system and clogs everything up to the point where Paul Bettany essentially gets to play drunk Vision amidst trying to set up a magic show, and 50 sitcom chaos ensues. And that was just a lot of fun, and I think some of the biggest laughs that me and my fiance had watching the show were based around Paul Bettany. So I want to know what you guys think of it, because I think it's definitely a certain type of humor, but I found it incredibly enjoyable, and I really hope we get to see more of it. And if this is the last time we see Vision in this show, um, it's very easy for me to say that I would miss the presence of Paul Bettany in the MCU very much. Uh, so moving on to someone who there's been a lot of speculation about, and I think that there is some credence for that speculation, but we're going to talk about Agnes. Now, Agnes is played by Catherine Hahn, who you might know from Bad Moms or Step Brothers or small roles in Anchorman and various other comedies. And she does bring a lot of comedy to this, to the show. However, I think it's not just the slapstick yuck yuck or maybe some of the outlandish humor that you might be used to. She fits in just as well, if not more so, in the 50 sitcom than Elizabeth Olsen. So I'm very impressed with Han's performance. But where the speculation comes from is a lot of people made the correlation that Agnes does sound similar to Agatha, and that is a reference to Agatha Harkness, which is a character that has always been very closely tied in with Wanda Maximoff in the comics and in the X-Men comics specifically. And Agatha Harkness is a witch that has been around since the Salem witch trials. Now, is this something that Marvel might just use for inspiration and do a spin-off on that character? They have done that before. And one of the first reasons that people thought of this is in some of the early trailers we see during Halloween when everyone's going around in costume and we have Vision and Wanda in their classic comic book costumes. Agatha is wearing a witch hat, and it just seemed a little on the nose. Now, on top of that, she is one of the only main recurring characters so far in these two episodes. And she is doing everything in her power, it seems, to get very close to Wanda, whereas everyone else in the show is kind of standoffish to these two main characters. Agatha is interjecting herself right into their life, and she introduces herself as the neighbor to the right, and she is credited in some of the early reports as the nosy neighbor. So we will see how that unfolds. And I wanted to take notice really quick that Marvel released a image recently of Agnes, and you can see that she has a pendant around her neck. And I have to, I did watch each episode twice. I might have to go look again to see if that's in both episodes. But that pendant is very reminiscent of Agatha Harkness's pendant. If you look up the name on Google, the most common images you will find, the pendant is, or necklace is, very, very prominent and hard to miss. So again, I think leading credence to the fact that maybe Agnes is Agatha, and maybe Agatha has a lot to do with what's going on and isn't just a player in this show or just another background character. I think that we will really see the importance of her play out as the show goes on. All right. I want to get to, it's funny, as I go down this character list, I'm like, oh, a mysterious character here or speculative character here. And really, we haven't gotten a lot with the show, but just with how characters are introduced and what we see in the trailers, it leads there's so much intrigue in it, and so it's very exciting to speculate. The next character I want to bring up is Geraldine. I hopefully said that right, I think. And I unfortunately forgot the actress's name, but she is actually credited as Monica Rambeau, the daughter of Maria Rambeau from Captain Marvel. Now, this being about 30 years later, we see her as an adult, and she doesn't really know what's going on. She says in the show, "I don't know why I'm here." And then I think Wanda in one of the trailers asks, "Who are you?" And she says, "I don't know." And we also see her get thrown through some kind of vortex or dome in the trailer, and it looks like she wakes up in our reality. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do with that character. Also worth noting is that Monica Rambeau did a brief stint as Captain Marvel and was later named Photon, and has a very similar power set to Captain Marvel. So is that something we could see get introduced in the show or maybe set up? I think that'd be very interesting to see. So I just want to ask you guys, what do you how do you feel about Wanda and Vision and Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany giving very different but very impressive performances? And who is your favorite background character so far? Who's really caught your eye? Now that's wrapping up some of our character conversations, and now I want to go to one of the it's almost a character in itself because it's this looming shadow over the whole show, and that is Sword. Now, Sword in the comics is a branch of Shield that's specified in space threats. However, I believe that the first two initials have been changed of Sword, because Sword being an acronym, to sentient weapon instead of I think it was space weapons maybe originally. And if you think about it, Elizabeth Olsen, Wanda Maximoff kind of is a sentient weapon. And I mean, you could also say that about Vision, I suppose. So it's interesting to see how they might be involved. Now, we know from some pictures and just some descriptions that Monica Rambeau will be a member of Sword. And we know that Randall Park's character from Ant-Man is also in the show, and I'm wondering if he is going to be a member of Sword as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. Now, this is not our introduction to Sword. If you remember the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Far From Home, then when they introduced Sword in the space station and you had Nick Fury and all the Skrulls walking about, I believe that was our real first introduction to that that branch of Shield, or that branch of the government. And I think there's a lot of different ways that you could go with Sword, and I think introducing it is kind of a sign of the times to come with the MCU, with all the introductions to Deviants and Eternals and Celestials and all those things that your friends ask you about because they don't know what the heck you're talking about. Okay. Another point that I would like to make is the commercials. They have one built-in commercial to each episode that is very reminiscent of the times that the episode is based off of, the 50 sitcoms in these first two episodes. And the first episode, or the first commercial, is for a toaster, and we get some there's not a lot of times that sexism can be used for humorous bits, but we do see how much the times have changed when the commercial opens up with, "Ladies, is your husband tired of you burning his toast?" Well, it's like the Toastmaster 2000 or something. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but they show all these ridiculous things. It's like, oh, you could put bread with cheese in here and cherry pie, and so it's very strange. But they show that the toaster is created by Stark Industries, and we hear a ticking throughout the episode, and then like a little boom sound. And I'm going to bring that back here after we talk about the second commercial. So in episode 2, again, we started off with a little sexism joke about ladies being accessories to men, and I think I felt a little safe because my fiance laughed with me as well. It's just it's funny to kind of look back on things and be grateful for how much the times have changed, I guess. But that's a conversation for another day. Um, we get introduced, or sorry, not introduced. They show off that the other accessory that is important is a Strucker watch. Now, if you remember Baron von Strucker from Age of Ultron and the post-credit scene of Winter Soldier, you can see why in a Wanda-centric show that would be significant. And they end the commercial saying, Strucker, he'll make time for you, which has a very ominous feeling to it. So the reason that I wanted to point out these two commercials, other than how fun they were to see, is a couple things. It's a small thing. In the first commercial with the toaster, we see the light on the toaster blinking with no color for the first half of the commercial. But as the commercial progresses, all of a sudden the color red is introduced. And what we noticed a lot is whenever the few instances occur where we do see color, it is always red, or sometimes red and yellow, both just colors that are very central to Wanda and Vision. And while that's both a interesting cue and reference to the characters, I'm very curious to see if that has any further impact on the show. It'll be interesting to see that play out. But so the first commercial is all about Stark, right? And the second one is about Strucker. Now, someone brought up online that it's interesting that Tony Stark, or possibly even his father, just Stark Technologies or Stark Industries, is responsible for the death of Maximoff, the Maximoffs, Wanda and Pietro's parents. And they remember hiding under a bed as a shell hit, and they kept waiting for it to go off, waiting for Tony Stark to kill them. And so that fueled her hatred for so long. So Tony was responsible indirectly for making her the angry person that she was when we met her in Age of Ultron. But part of what created that character also is Baron von Strucker, when he took the Maximoff twins and experimented on them with Loki's scepter and used it to unlock or deliver them abilities. And so these are two product placement commercials, and Strucker and Stark, interestingly enough, created a product of their own together, which is Wanda Maximoff, or Scarlet Witch, as we first came to know her. So it will be, I'll be very interested to see how the commercials continue, if they continue, moving ahead into the rest of the season. So we have some questions, or we'll say questions, and maybe some theories thrown in there too. Is Vision back is a big question. Is this all in Wanda's head? Is this just a construct of her powers mixed with imagination? When the facade falls, does she lose Vision a third time? Or is there something that she attempted to do to bring him back that is maybe responsible for creating this whole pocket dimension? I'm going to call it that because for right now I can't tell what it is, but that's kind of what it seems to be, is a pocket dimension outside of reality. And I will say there's only been kind of subtle shots, but I have been paying close attention to the trailers, and there have only been a few times where we have seen Wanda in what looks like her modern hair color, modern clothing, all that stuff. And there's there are bright blasts of yellow light, and I have done freeze frames and scrubbed through, and it appears to be like Wanda is either trying to create from scratch or rebuild the Mind Stone so that she can bring Vision back. And I think that explosion might be what sets off WandaVision, this whole reality of hers. I could be completely off, but I don't know. I could speculate either direction. I don't know if this is the last time we see Vision, if she somehow managed to bring him back, or it was the attempt that drove her further into madness. Speaking of madness, this show leading into Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness. And do we see Scarlet Witch, Wanda, possibly become an antagonist after losing Vision a third time and everything just hitting critical mass where she can't take it anymore? Uh, who's to say? And I think another question is, how much of this is Wanda's doing? Is she seems like in the episodes, I'll do a couple examples. She seems more aware than we might initially think of what's going on. In the first episode, when Mr. Hart and his wife come over to the Vision residence and they have dinner and he is choking, she drops her bubbly 50s persona and stares at Vision, says, Vision, help him. And it doesn't seem like he was just listening to her. It almost seemed like he responded to the command, which might lend to thinking that he's not a thinking for himself actual being, and this is just all Wanda's reality. Unclear. And then again, throughout the second episode, we hear thudding outside, and it's unclear what that is. And towards the end, Wanda and Vision both go outside, and there is a sewer cap that is removed, and a beekeeper crawls out with bees all around him. And it's a very odd imagery, and it kind of gives you this uncomfortable, uneasy vibe. And again, Wanda seems to break character, break the fourth wall, and be the Wanda we know. And she just says, no. Like, whatever that was, like maybe it was reality seeping in, she was denying its existence, denying its ability to have an effect on her perfect paradise of a world. When she says no, everything rewinds, like just hitting the rewind button on the old TV remotes. And it gets back to the moment that she deems to be the perfect moment. And from there on, it shows that she's pregnant, which again might be something that consciously or subconsciously she always wanted. And we end the episode on a happy note. And I think that is where the interest level really peaks for me, because I don't know what's going on, but she seems to be able to drastically affect every aspect of this world. So again, is there a element of Agatha Harkness that is controlling Wanda to some degree? Is Wanda being kind of used as a tool or to manufacture something? I don't know. An interesting thing, though, is that through the second episode, we see frequently that the townsfolk always are saying, when they're having this charity event, this magic show, they always say, for the children, which we haven't seen a single child in, I believe it's Westview, I believe is the name of the town. We haven't seen a child anywhere, but this is all for the children, before the show, during the show, after the show. And then they make a joke, Wanda and Vision, when they come back home, make a joke about it later, and they say, for the children. And it's almost like that clicks something in Wanda's head. She's like, oh, look, I'm pregnant now. And some of this feels like subliminal messaging being fed into Wanda's reality to get some kind of result out of her. Now, is somebody trying to intentionally have Wanda have children, create children, or something along those lines so that they could use it? Now, we've seen the commercials also represent two sides of a coin. Tony Stark, who we know ultimately to be good, and Strucker, representing Hydra. And we see the Hydra symbol on the watch. And one of my questions is, do we have both Sword agents and Hydra agents in and outside of this dimension, this reality of Wanda's? And how does that come into play? Maybe Agnes is working for Hydra. Maybe she's working for S.H.I.E.L.D. We know that Monica Rambeau is a Sword agent. I think I said S.H.I.E.L.D. before I meant Sword. So how did she get there? Was it intentional? Did she just get sucked up into the chaos? I don't know. So again, boiling back to the question, how much is Wanda aware? How much of this is her doing, or is she being used? And interesting thing that was, I've said interesting about 300 times this episode, I think. and I don't know. It's because there's some fascinating elements in the show already, and so all the people are saying that they think it's boring. I'm sorry that there's not enough explosions or Michael Bay isms to keep your attention span. If you are a fan of the MCU and Marvel content and you're really paying attention, I think there's plenty there for you to be excited about and anticipating moving forward. Um, Lost my train of thought. So moving on from that, I think that kind of sums up my thoughts. I know they're a little bit everywhere, but I didn't want to do just a start to finish rundown of the two episodes. So please come back next week when we talk about episode 3 of WandaVision. And I've heard from a lot of reviewers that were given screeners for the first 3 episodes that 3 is where the plot really kicks in and things start to unravel and we see what is really going on behind the curtain. So looking forward to that, and hopefully you are as well. Thank you so much for joining us on another installment of the Flick-N-Reel Fancast. We really want to grow this channel and devote more time and energy into making informative and entertaining content for years to come. This can only be achieved by support from you guys, so please don't forget to click that subscribe button and hit the little bell icon to be notified anytime we release news, breakdowns, trailer discussions, or reviews. Just remember to always keep it real.